For a long day of deliberations tomorrow in a Waupaca County murder trial related to stolen reptiles. The judge released them this afternoon after the defense rested its case.
And as we reported, William Zelenski faces first-degree intentional homicide charges for the death of 18-year-old Riley Menente in 2020. Zelenski accused Menente of stealing $17,000 worth of exotic reptiles, alcohol, and weapons. Emily Roberts joins us now live outside the Waupaca County Courthouse with this first alert update. Emily.
Bill, Cammie, the judge released jurors this afternoon just a few hours ago before closing arguments, saying that he has some legal work to do with the attorneys. And Zelenski took the stand first thing today, answering questions from the prosecution about de-escalation techniques he used as a Waupaca police officer in the early 2000s and how those techniques applied to the night of the shooting. Doorbell video shows Menente and Zelenski shouting at one another moments before the shooting. Zelenski said he tried to stay calm, keep some distance, and show his gun in an attempt to de-escalate that situation. The prosecution then asked why the gun was loaded. Zelenski reliving the night of the shooting after testifying he felt afraid of Menente at times.
Riley's running away from you. Is that true? Riley ran
Yes.
away from you. What did you do?
I went towards my car,
You chased Riley.
essentially.
Jurors returned to the Waupaca County Courthouse around 9 a.m. and the judge expects deliberations to start before noon. Action 2 News will be the first to alert you as soon as we have a verdict. Live in Waupaca, Emily Roberts, Action 2 News.